Chapter 22. Give you the position of concubine 1. At this time, a few people were already sitting in the main hall. Sitting at the most honored position was none other than the Crown Prince Su Luo had encountered yesterday, Nangong Liujiue. He seemed to like the color yellow. Today he was dressed in a yellow brocade robe, patterned with 6 golden dragons that ferociously bared their fangs and brandished their claws. The Crown Prince was wearing a flat rectangular crown with 9 tassels. Each tassel was composed of a golden string threaded through with small silver pearls. The light from the tasseled crown revealed a wild, frivolous, and tyrannical face. His lips were puckered as if sucking on something sour, and his nose was hooked like an eagle's beak. His seemingly calm gaze hit a sharp eagle-like deadly edge. From the beginning, his pair of matchless indifferent eyes never glanced at Su Luo. It was as if just glancing at Su Luo would dirty his honorable eyes. Holding a cup of fragrant tea, his posture was elegant and noble. Perfectly composed, he coolly sipped the fragrant tea with a lofty attitude and indifferent demeanor. Sitting beside him at a lower seating was Great General Su Zian. This was the first time Su Luo saw the father of her body's original owner. She only saw a 40-year or so person covered in an ink-colored robe who had a cold and frigid expression. This person gave off a piercing, imposing, and detached aura, especially his stern eyes that contained an endless harsh chilliness. He turned his severe imposing face and shouted at Su Luo. "How can you be so lacking in manners? Why aren't you saluting the Crown Prince?" At this time, She had already sweetly given the proper ceremonial salute to the Crown Prince. She had already intimately walked to the Crown Prince's side, affectionately and sweetly saying Crown Prince brother this and Crown Prince that. The Crown Prince lifted his eyes. A dismissing glance landed on Su Luo's face. He indifferently asked, "You are Su Luo?" To be honest, the girl standing in front of him didn't look too bad. Clothed in a white butterfly muslin gown that swept the floor, which showed off her shapely figure, ink-black hair tied with a light purple ribbon, and a few strands of escaped hair playfully draped across her shoulder. Her face, devoid of cosmetics, was so fresh that it was even moving. Su Luo softly replied, "Yes." Her clear voice was calm and collected, cold and agile, with not a single superfluous word. She bravely held the Crown Prince's gaze with her dark iris that looked like dotted ink. The Crown Prince slightly frowned, because Su Luo's eyes were too pure and too bright. The gaze that was as pure as water seemed to be like a blinding light that could instantly see through all the secrets hidden in his heart. The Crown Prince sulked, silently taking her measure, and tightly wrinkled his forehead. As his hands held the teacup, his mouth hooked up into a nefarious sneer. "Because of you, this king has been ridiculed for more than 10 years. Tell me, what sort of punishment do you deserve?" She never thought that this Crown Prince would be so unscrupulous and shameless. He was ridiculed by others for more than 10 years, but what did that have to do with her? He even threw all the blame onto her. If it was the past weak and powerless Su Luo, then this matter would have been dropped. But would the current Su Luo suffer such a loss? Obviously not. Su Luo coldly smiled. "Then may I ask the Crown Prince, back then was it Su Manor who pushed for this engagement? Obviously it was your dear Queen Mother who saw Su Manor's 4th Mrs. Good Omen, and hastily decided on the engagement, for fear that Su Luo would be stolen by others. If you want to find a culprit to blame, then you should go look for the Queen. Why are you looking for me? This is like picking up soft persimmons and nitpicking it for being soft." Did he really believe that she would not rebel? Su Luo. The color on Su Zian's face began to change as he violently shouted, "What's wrong with this girl? She didn't have such courage before, and every time she saw the Crown Prince, she would be submissive and could barely breath. Now she even dared to talk back to the Crown Prince? Who gave her this right?" The Crown Prince's mouth curved into a cold smile as a pair of beautiful piercing eyes held a deep iciness and austerity. Shrewish sharp mouth, a crafty and skillfully argued speech, and every word spoken is vulgar and rude. Chapter 23. Give you the position of concubine 2. Su Luo's laugh was joyful and sunny. Crown Prince is saying that the Crown Prince is wise with amazing martial arts, speaks with eloquence, distinguished and carefree, never picks on others, never bully the weak, and never used power to oppress the people? How could this subject even compare? The Crown Prince's brow wrinkled slightly as his eyes filled with annoyance and another bone-chilling coldness. He carelessly played with the thumb ring on his finger, and shot a smile that was not quite a smile at Su Zian and said, "The great general really did educate a such great daughter. She really knows how to praise this king really admires that." Although his words sounded like praise, those words were like a sharp sword that brutally stabbed toward great General Su's chest. Su Zian's complexion changed as he waved his hands toward Su Luo and angrily thundered, "Why are you not quickly apologizing to the Crown Prince?" Su Luo revealed a terrified expression, and at the same time, looked despondent. She glanced at the raised hand, raised her small palm-sized face, innocently asked, "Father, is daughter's praise of the Crown Prince wrong? Is the Crown Prince not wise with amazing martial arts? Not eloquent in speech? Not distinguished and carefree? Are you implying that the Crown Prince picks on others, bully the weak, and oppress the people?" Su Zian's face darkened a little bit after each sentence Su Luo uttered, until the very end when his face could be described as being covered by a dense black cloud. It could be said that every word Su Luo used, if alone, was correct, but put together, it had the opposite meaning. This was Su Luo playing words games. How could Su Zian, a military man, win against her, who was an experienced veteran? At this time, Su Luo snorted in her heart. Break off the engagement? Even though this lady also wants to break off the engagement, this lady is still in a bad mood, because you were the one who mentioned it. You wanted to break this engagement, but do you think it'll just break like that because you want it to break? Clap. 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 The Crown Prince suddenly stood up, and steadily, step by step, slowly walked to Su Luo's side. His condescending manner, eyes full of nefarious light, looked at her up and down, while carrying an evil and callous atmosphere. A touch of interest suddenly flashed in his gaze. Outside of his expectations, Su Luo indifferently stared back at him. But Su Luo's heart secretly became more alert. This Crown Prince was suspicious and capricious. If she mishandled him, then she will suffer a loss. Ha ha ha, amusing. This is really interesting. The Crown Prince suddenly started to laugh loudly. He turned toward Su Zian and said, "Great General Su, this king did not speak wrongly. You really did raise an interesting daughter." What could Su Zian possibly say? He could only laugh along with the Crown Prince. In the end, whatever the Crown Prince says would always be right. Su Shi and Su Jingyu's expression changed in an instant. What does the Crown Prince mean? He praised Su Luo as amusing and looked at her with interest. Could it be that this engagement won't be cancelled? Although Su Luo's heart was secretly on guard, she was still confident about her judgment. Regarding the Crown Prince's feminine and viscous type of person, he was only interested in what benefit him. He would never give up sushi, a piece of fat meat that was about to reach his mouth, on account of Su Luo. At this moment, Su Jingyu took a step forward. His tone was a bit gloomy as he said, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince." The Crown Prince waved his hands, revealing that faint half-smile, and that flirtatious threatening, yet matchless handsome countenance. "This king understand your meaning. Rest assured, today this engagement will be cancelled." But he condescendingly said to Su Luo, "You must really want to marry this king, right? This king is not that unreasonable. I can give you a chance right now." Su Luo coldly threw him a glance as she secretly laughed in her heart. The Crown Prince nobly sat down on the luxurious soft cushion, and arrogantly continued, "If you can answer the question asked by this king promises you to give you the position of concubine." Chapter 22-24. Sudden Fame 4. Li Man tugged on Su Luo's sleeve and whispered, "This really is very hard. You can't even see through the target holes with your eyes. You'd better be careful." Su Luo smiled faintly and nodded her head. At this point, everyone in the class had already done the test, with Su Luo being the last one left. The results for this assessment had also been released, with the first position undoubtedly belonging to Fairy Wu Yu. As for second place, that person's score was not far off from Fairy Wu Yu's. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on Su Luo. It seems like the first position will be Fairy Wu Yu's this time around. The first place ranker will get special privileges. There is still Su Luo left. Why are you jumping to conclusions? There isn't even a need to compare. Don't you know this by now? Fairy Wuyu is the strongest one in our class. Exactly. As for that Su Luo, even though she isn't bad, how could she possibly match up to our Fairy Wuyu? I predict that she can only go through 20 bullseyes tops. I respect her a little bit more than you, so I predict that she will go through 30 bullseyes. What? 30? How is that even possible? Almost everyone thought that no one else could beat Fairy Wuyu's record, with her first place ranking being untouchable by anyone. Under the pessimistic atmosphere coming from everyone in the class, Su Luo slowly went over to the field and quietly stood there. She did not start immediately upon arriving in place. Instead, raising her brows, she proceeded to look serenely at the bullseyes in front of her. Su Luo had extreme confidence in the energy capacity of her fallen red lotus, so the first problem of having insufficient energy capacity, which everyone faced, wasn't a problem at all for her. The current problem she faced was the formulation of a method she would need to employ in order to draw the entire human shape from start to finish with a single thread. Su Luo sighed silently in her heart. What a shame. She had yet to fuse with the wisdom skull bone. If not, she would have been able to formulate a strategy. Su Luo stood in front of the targets, her eyes looking straight ahead, her body standing as stiff as a machine, while she appeared as though she was daydreaming. In reality, Su Luo was actually daydreaming, as her soul had already left her body and moved into her spatial ring to use her communication amulet to contact Nangong Luyan. She could only figure out how to pass through 65 targets. Even though she could beat Fairy Wuyu like that, she didn't feel satisfied to achieve a win like that. While Su Luo was talking to Nangong Luyan through the communication amulet, all the people present were staring at her. Why is she standing there like a wooden log? Could it be that she's turned herself into an idiot by thinking too hard? There's a time limit to this assessment, with everyone given a joystick's worth of time to do so. The joystick has already burnt down to half its length. And that Su Luo is really still standing there like an idiot? Is this her way of giving up? Upon seeing the state that Su Yu was in, Fairy Wuyu felt extremely delighted. Raising her chin, she shot a look filled with disdain towards the former. Haha, you want to fight me? Let's see how you die this time. Despite being the focus of everyone's gaze, Su Luo continued to remain indifferent. Compared to her, Li Man, who was standing next to her, was so nervous that she was sweating profusely, all while pulling Su Luo lightly time after time. At this point, the eighth elder's expression had already turned ugly. His eyes were as deep as the ocean. Just when there was only a third of the joystick left, Su Luo's conversation with Nangong Luyan finally came to an end. As expected, Nangong Luyan only took a little bit of time to find the solution to the problem that troubled Su Luo. He merely needed to think for a split second before being able to precisely calculate the path Su Luo would need to take, making her admire him even more. His mind works even faster than a computer. No wonder why he is so sly. Su Luo mumbled quietly to herself. When she lifted up her head, she saw. Chapter 22-25. Sudden Fame 5. Su Luo was filled with excitement when she saw all of these gazes trained at her, before proceeding to look back at Fairy Wuyu's proud eyes. Fairy Wuyu gave Su Luo a thumbs down. With only 1/3 of the joystick remaining, Fairy Wuyu thought that Su Luo's loss was certain. Su Luo smiled and said nothing more, because there was no need for any meaningless words. She would use her actions to prove how ridiculous Fairy Wuyu's actions were. Su Luo stopped staring at others and looked at the bullseyes in front of her. She opened her hand, and a bundle of flames was dancing on her palm very quickly. It seemed like the fire was alive, as it slowly danced about in her hand. Her initial action shocked many people, since they had never seen such a spirited fire before. A look of deep contemplation was present within the gaze that the eighth elder laid on Su Luo. Su Luo focused her thoughts and restrained her emotions, before proceeding to bring her left hand's thumb and index finger together to give the flames present in the center of her palm a pinch. Then a mysterious scene happened. With Su Luo's pull, that bunch of lively flames seemed like an antenna that was being lengthened, getting longer and slimmer. Seeing this whole process, everyone was stunned. This was precisely the compression of energy that the eighth elder mentioned during the lecture. Everyone had to use the full might of their spiritual energy just to painfully pull their flames into a thin strand, whereas Suluo had actually managed to lengthen her flames with a casual pull of her hand. How was this even fair? Many people were crying out painfully within their hearts. However, they didn't even get to scream it out loud, because right now Suluo's hand appeared as though she was performing magic tricks, as her fingers moved about at lightning speed, dazzling everyone's eyes. Nevertheless, all of them refused to close their eyes for fear that they would miss something out if they blinked. Go. Suluo released the thread of fire in her left hand. The problem was everyone, including Fairy Wuyu, had to personally control their thread of fire to pass through those minuscule targets. However, compared to them, Suluo didn't even need to do that. Her fire seemed to have developed its own intelligence, a terrifying smart one on top of that. When Suluo gave out an order, the fire immediately shot out, as though it had sprouted wings. Then, it quickly proceeded to fly through those minuscule targets like a dragon soaring through the sky. Those incredibly tiny bullseyes. Furthermore, each bullseye had a net of energy blockage in it. Not only did one need to control the slim ray of fire to puncture the target points, one would also need to move it across the net of energy blockage in order to be completely moving through each target point. Hence everyone, including Fairy Wuyu, was extremely careful every time they entered each new target point. But Suluo's fire. It could make its own decision. Afraid of nothing, bravely moving forward, who dared to compete with it? As if the fire already had its own radar, it shot forward quickly. Not only that, it knew how to turn, jump and did many other tricks. The whole process left everyone dumbfounded. They were all stunned and didn't know how to react. Oh my god! What a divine fire! Was Suluo's understanding of the fire element already this deep? No wonder why she could answer such a hard question during the lecture. It was from experience. Her fire seems to be really powerful. Wouldn't it be what the eighth elder mentioned before? The legendary exotic fire? Everyone was sure that Suluo used the exotic fire, but knowing that Fairy Wuyu had used mystic fire, they could tell that the latter's fire wasn't as strong as Suluo's. Chapter 22-26, Sudden Fame 6. Stop talking, you guys. Look at Fairy Wuyu's face. At that moment, many people didn't dare look at Fairy Wuyu's face directly. Instead, they all sneakily glanced at her out of the corner of their eyes. How could Fairy Wuyu not notice? It was precisely because she knew that she was being seen by people as a joke, that the anger in her heart immediately rose like a flame. Fairy Wuyu glared at Suluo. Looking at the back of Suluo's beautiful head, she wished to pierce 1,000 or 800 holes into it with her eyes. Lin Banli saw Fairy Wuyu clenching her fists with her face stern and twisted, and his heart tightened. He hurriedly comforted her. The incense is about to burn out. The implication in his words was that Suluo still couldn't win. Fairy Wuyu turned her gaze to the burning incense that had only a quarter left, and then looked at the fast-circling flame in Suluo's hand, her brows still furrowed like before. This stinky girl was actually really good. In the blink of an eye, the flames hit 5 more bullseyes. How many is that? Fairy Wuyu frowned. 39. Yen Xiao had been counting the entire time, so he opened his mouth and answered. Snap! The teacup in Fairy Wuyu's hand was crushed by her. How long had it been? In such a short time, Suluo's flames had already reached the 39th target? Furthermore, Fairy Wuyu also realized that the direction of Suluo's flame was very different from hers. Suluo started with the tip of her right finger. No, I can't let it go on like this, no. Fairy Wuyu gritted her teeth, a deep fear simultaneously flashing in her eyes. She had always considered Suluo in a position where she could be trampled to death at will. Even when Lan Ningyan was killed by Suluo, she had not paid much heed to her, but at this moment, Fairy Wuyu was really afraid of Suluo. At this age, with this kind of talent, and this kind of trump card, Fairy Wuyu admitted that if she were at the same age, she wouldn't be Suluo's opponent at all. Her only advantage now was that she was older than Suluo, and so had started cultivating over 10 years earlier than her. At this time, Lin Banli looked at Suluo with a flash of shock in his eyes. He nodded and said, Indeed, if this continues, Su Luo's flames may very well reach the end before the incense burns out. Su Luo's flames were already terrifying, but her precision and accurate calculations were equally shocking. Her flames shot out nonstop, without so much as a pause. What did this prove? It showed that as long as there was enough time, Su Luo would very likely be able to finish off all 76 bullseyes. Fairy Wuyu had only hit 56, but if Su Luo reached the end, if there was enough time, the deciding factor here was time. Seeing the unsightly look on Fairy Wuyu's face, a sinister light flashed in Yan Zhao's eyes as he sneered. How could there be enough time? By the time he finished speaking, he had already disappeared from where he originally stood. Believing what he said, Fairy Wuyu let out a sigh of relief. She understood Yan Zhao's plan, and she felt that he did a good job. Inwardly, Lin Banli was upset. It was a pity that such an opportunity to do something for Fairy Wuyu was snatched away by the silent Yan Zhao. At this moment, almost everyone in the audience was watching Su Luo's dragon-like flames, so no one noticed the incense that was about to burn out. A gust of wind suddenly shot towards the incense. Not good. The incense is about to burn out. Someone exclaimed. Chapter 22-27. Sudden Fame 7. Suddenly, everyone's eyes looked towards the incense. If the incense were to go out, it would mean that time was up, and Su Luo would leave this game with only deep regret. Just as the blade of wind approached the incense, a ball of flame burst out, flying fiercely towards the wind blade. With a cracking sound, the wind blade was intercepted and fell apart, and the flames flared up into the sky. When everyone saw that cluster of flames, their eyes seemed about to fall out. Wasn't this flame the same element as the flame that was being controlled over there? Was Su Luo able to control the flames to hit the bullseyes, while still having room to protect the incense? At this moment, everyone stared at Su Luo with shock. While the others were panting and sweating, trying to control the flames to hit the targets, only Su Luo still remained calm and relaxed, her mind untroubled, without sweating, and she hadn't even frowned once. 50, 52. 54. Subconsciously, people started counting how many bullseyes Su Luo's flames pierced through. At this point, Fairy Wuyu's complexion was so obscure that it seemed as if water could drip out, gloomy and dark like a clouded sky. It's almost there, almost there. She's close to surpassing the 56 marks of Fairy Wuyu. Just push a bit farther. There were some who couldn't help but yell. There were a few people who voiced their agreement with this sentence. Even if Fairy Wuyu wanted to retaliate, she couldn't take it out on the crowd, as she couldn't find out which people were doing so. At this moment, all eyes were fixed on the flames, and all of them were becoming excited over this, as if they were the ones controlling the flames, and they became extremely solemn in their concentration, holding their breaths. There was a slight smile in Su Luo's eyes as she controlled the flames to quickly move forwards. 56. Fairy Wuyu's record is broken, it's broken. Fairy Wuyu has lost. Someone reveled. Fairy Wuyu lost. This was unthinkable for almost everyone, because in their minds, Fairy Wuyu had always been infinitely elevated above all others, and she was always ranked first in the class. But now Su Luo had actually surpassed her. Quickly look, Su Luo is still going. No one knew who shouted this out, but everyone's attention became focused on Su Luo once again. 58. 62. 65. Damn. Is Su Luo really thinking of making it through all of the bullseyes? Can't she let the rest of us have some room to breathe? Human nature was a very strange thing. If Su Luo had surpassed them only a little bit, then they would be jealous and dissatisfied, but now that Su Luo was so much better than them, they knew they could only look up to her, so they all began to admire and idolize Su Luo. 68. 70. 72. The incense is almost burnt out, hurry, hurry up. Someone glanced at the incense, and became anxious, so much so that their throat was about to become hoarse from screaming. He was more worked up than the contestants themselves. It was a case of the emperor being not in a hurry, but rather the eunuchs were the ones filled with anxiety. These people almost stomped their feet out of agitation while Su Luo still remained calm, going at her leisure, the flames she was controlling flying forward at a constant speed. 74. 76. In the midst of a last wave of cheering, the incense finally burned out, completing its mission in history. At this moment, everyone turned and fixed their gazes upon Su Luo, causing her to feel somewhat embarrassed. Chapter 22-28. Sudden Fame, 8. Ahem. Su Luo laughed. Fortunately, it was just an accidental success. She was so confident before, but now she said it had been an accidental success? The crowd felt ashamed on behalf of Su Luo. At this moment, Su Luo turned around and walked in front of Fairy Wuyu. Her steps not too slow yet not too fast, but every step she took seemed to hit Fairy Wuyu's heart heavily. Fairy Wuyu's hand clenched into a fist. Her face turned red as she stared at Su Luo, glaring at her with angry and dangerous eyes. In contrast to Fairy Wuyu, Su Luo was wearing a long plain dress. Her entire body was bare of any accessories, and she simply wore two long plain belts that swayed in the wind at her waist. But at this moment, she exuded a stronger aura than Fairy Wuyu, who had countless ornaments all over her body. Fairy Wuyu glared at Su Luo like a ferocious wolf, but under her angry gaze, Su Luo didn't even spare her a glance. Instead, she actually reached out and pushed away Fairy Wuyu, who was standing in front of her. "Where are my 7 stars pearl?" Su Luo looked at Lin Hanli with a smirk. Lin Hanli turned his head to look at Fairy Wuyu. But at this moment, Fairy Wuyu was still dumbfounded and hadn't come back to her senses yet. She was now immersed in the fact that she had been pushed away by Su Luo. And looking at that disoriented and disbelieving look on her face, one could tell that she still hadn't come out of her daze. "Wuyu!" Lin Hanli glared at Su Luo fiercely, but looked at Fairy Wuyu with a tender and doting gaze. This soft call of her name pulled the shocked Fairy Wuyu back into reality. Fairy Wuyu raised her head, her eyes looking towards Su Luo, and she raised her hand. Just as she was about to slap Su Luo, she found that her hand was being held by someone, and that person was none other than Su Luo herself. The 1-year period, has Fairy Wuyu forgotten it? Su Luo smiled, cunning as a fox. Of course, if Fairy Wuyu wants to make a move now, it's not that it's impossible, but senior brother Luo's bet will have to be cancelled. Fairy Wuyu had promised not to make any moves towards Su Luo within a 1-year period. Fairy Wuyu was so angry that she nearly gnashed her teeth. She had made a bet, yet she had gotten herself involved in it. Fairy Wuyu stared viciously at Su Luo and gritted her teeth. "You want to cancel the bet? Don't even think about it." Saying this, she yanked back her hand. Su Luo smiled faintly. She bet right. To Wuyu was imperative to have senior brother Luo. Ah! Su Luo's eyes flashed with a dark and dull light. If Fairy Wuyu insisted on making a move now, Su Luo was certain that Fairy Wuyu's chances of winning were over 99%. In terms of real strength, the current Su Luo really wasn't Fairy Wuyu's opponent. Unfortunately, she had chosen a 1-year arrangement. 1 year was enough to change many things, including Su Luo's strength. Su Luo's eyes curved up into a cunning smile. Her gaze fixed on Lin Hanli with the right palm of her hand stretched out. Even if she was asking for the stakes in a bet, Su Luo's aura and attitude still seemed very calm and relaxed. The 7 stars pearl. Lin Hanli really couldn't bear to give it away. He had risked his life and obtained the 7 stars pearls after almost dying 9 times. And he had originally wanted to give it to Wuyu. Give it to her. Fairy Wuyu hatefully spit out this sentence. "This broken iron and copper, you think I care about these?" She is shallow-eyed and thinks they are good things. Give it to her. Hurry up and give it to her. This broken iron shallow-eyed thought they were good. Lin Hanli was almost crying. That was his entire heart and soul. His heart was about to break. Chapter 22-29. Demon Clan's Fire Territory 1. Su Luo saw that he was unwilling to do so but had no choice, and felt somewhat amused in her heart. At this moment, Fairy Wuyu sneered. "So what if you got the 7 stars pearl? When you try to strengthen them, you might not be able to succeed in strengthening even one. Isn't it nothing but a waste of time?" Strengthening. Su Luo frowned, a trace of bewilderment flashing under her eyes. "You don't even know about strengthening and still snatched away the 7 stars pearl." Fairy Wuyu glanced at Su Luo with mockery. No one else can help you in this matter. It has to be done by you yourself. The implication in her words was that Su Luo was equivalent to a fool. Su Luo's eyes flickered and she scanned her surroundings, finally fixing her eyes on the eighth elder, and she humbly asked him for advice. The eighth elder was a teacher, so when faced with a student's request for advice, how could he not answer? But the eighth elder's answer was very brief. Condense the flame energy, use the blood of the heart as the adhesive, and inlay them into the weapon. Even if I said it, this can be understood but not explained. You'll have to go and feel it out yourself. Can only be understood but not explained? Su Luo thought about it, and then took out her Qingying sword. Fairy Wuyu laughed coldly. You don't intend to inlay it right here and now, do you? It was obvious that just now Su Luo had not known anything and had not learned to strengthen the gemstones at all. But now she wanted to inlay them on the spot just after hearing a few words from the eighth elder? This was simply too arrogant. Inlaying on the spot. Good idea. Su Luo praised. Fairy Wuyu was so angry that smoke was about to come out of her head, and then she laughed in anger. Fine, then let everyone here see how badly you can ruin the 7 stars pearl. Who knows, there might not even be a single pearl left behind. Either way, it was earned through a gamble. Even if there's not even one left, it's not really a pity. Su Luo casually replied. This sentence once again blocked off Fairy Wuyu abruptly. But Fairy Wuyu then sneered. I forgot to tell you that once you fail, not only the gems will become useless trash, but the power of the weapon will also be reduced by 10%. If you fail 7 times in a row, your weapon will also become useless trash. Do you still dare to try? Fairy Wuyu had put Su Luo in a difficult position. Su Luo rubbed her chin. There was such a rule? She hadn't known of this earlier. Don't dare, right? Fairy Wuyu laughed wildly. Su Luo's willow brows furrowed slightly. No one had retorted when Fairy Wuyu said this. That was to say, since nobody said otherwise, it meant that this was indeed the case. Su Luo thought she had no pressure when extracting flame energy, and her blood was the essence of scarlet blood Ningpo figwort, so the chance of failure shouldn't be too high. Inlaying on the spot, what's wrong with that? Su Luo smiled lightly. Next, Su Luo slid her fingertips, and a drop of bright crimson thick blood rolled down to the fluorescent translucent gem. At the same time, Su Luo's right hand had already condensed flame energy. The orange-red flame at the tip of her finger jumped to the bloodstained gem, and then it carried the gem towards Su Luo's Qingying sword. The body of the sword was like a clear spring, fluorescent and bright. The flame energy carried the first gemstone with a swoosh, and steadily drilled into the body of the sword, passing through the body of the Qingying sword. The gemstone rested steadily on the Qingying sword, flashing with a bright red light. Of the 7 stars pearl, there were originally 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple respectively, and Su Luo had taken the red one to experiment on first. Chapter 2230. Demon Clan's Fire Territory. Su Luo wasn't bragging. It really was her first time inlaying a sword, so she didn't really understand it. Fairy Wuyu was dumbfounded. How could you inlay gems like this? Shouldn't the gem be repelled, and then exploded? Under normal circumstances, wasn't the strengthening rate of gems at 10%? Filled with shock, Fairy Wuyu stared at Su Luo for a long time, unable to react. Not just Fairy Wuyu, but many of the people present stared at Su Luo in disbelief. You cheated! Yan Xiao shouted at Su Luo with a face full of indignance. Where did I cheat? Su Luo looked confused. How could you possibly succeed on your first attempt at inlaying gems to strengthen weapons? This wasn't your first attempt to begin with. Outraged, Yan Xiao's voice cried out so sharply it seemed to pierce straight through the clouds. Yes, it's definitely not her first time strengthening gems. Otherwise, how else could she succeed in one go? Even I failed dozens of times when starting out. But you also have to take natural talent into account, not to mention, Su Luo's flames are so good. It's hard to say if it's her first time or not. I won't believe it unless she can continue strengthening the remaining 6 gems. Yan Xiao sneered. And what if I can? Su Luo smirked as she looked at Yan Xiao. Not even the most capable master of strengthening, can do 7 gems in a row without slipping up. For a rookie like Su Luo to do such a thing? Yan Xiao didn't believe it at all. To get some face back for Fairy Wu Yu, Yan Xiao pointed at the targets and said, "If you can strengthen all remaining 6 gems, I'll eat those targets." There were 76 targets. Yet Yan Xiao was still able to say these words. But no one believed Su Luo would succeed. So the crowd silently cursed Yan Xiao in their hearts for being cunning. Su Luo smiled lightly. "These targets aren't very tasty, but since you want to eat them so much, then I'll help you make it happen." Su Luo's face was full of confidence, and watched the crowd laugh out loud. Li Man tugged at Su Luo's sleeve. "Strengthening gems is very difficult. Even senior brother Luo does not dare to say he could succeed 7 times in a row. Even if you want to strengthen the gems, you should still make complete preparations first." Su Luo shook her head with a faint smile. She didn't need to prepare anything else, because her blood and flames were the best on the continent. This was her secret to succeeding, so she didn't need any further preparations. Strengthening gems was very difficult for other people. But Su Luo had the flames of the fallen red lotus and the blood of the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort. Then it was only a matter of learning it, understanding it once learned, and excelling at it once understood. The second, orange gem. Without suspense, it was inlaid onto the Chungying sword, and was a great success in strengthening it. The third, yellow gem. Again, success with no accident. The fourth, green gem. Success again. Everyone. Their eyes had gone stiff staring at Su Luo. Just where the hell did this demon come from? Just earlier she was asking the 8th elder how to inlay and strengthen. But that couldn't have been more than a quarter of an hour ago, right? To think she had already succeeded 4 times in a row, 4 times. Even the greatest master of inlaying would need at least 2 hours to achieve 4 consecutive successes, and would be exhausted and sweating all over after finishing, right? Chapter 2231. Demon Clan's Fire Territory 3. Was there any hint of tiredness on her face? Not only was she not tired, but her eyes were also shining brightly, burning with excitement for all to see. Oh my God! These people were so strong that they could cause an earthquake from the stomp of their feet. But incomparable shock surged through their hearts from seeing Su Luo. So excited that they almost started swearing out loudly. After seeing Su Luo's actions, Yan Zhao's gaze turned cold, before turning into a malicious pair of eyes that pierced through Su Luo. The dread present in Fairy Wu Yu's eyes grew deeper by a few shades. While everyone was caught up in their shock by how powerful she was, Su Luo had already finished the 5th green gem, and was trying to get the 6th blue gem. While attempting the 6th gem, Su Luo suddenly became aware of the fervent glances from everyone. After giving it some thought, she came up with something. She shouldn't be showing off too much right now. Instead, she needed to play dumb to protect herself. Hence, the flame in her hand suddenly vibrated. The originally lively bright flame turned into a small and weak one, and slowly reduced into a pathetically minuscule one, as small as her finger. Oh, that is a sign of running out of energy. Su Luo can't keep going anymore. Exactly, if she continuously and successfully inlay 7 gems, wouldn't she be even greater than a genius? Yan Zhao's retreating footsteps came to an immediate stop. Tilting his head only to see Su Luo's worried expression, he instantly roared out crazily. "Ha ha ha, your flame is about to die. And yet you dare to brag that you could inlay all 7 gems at once. Aren't you a little concerned that you're bragging too much?" Fairy Wu Yu's original taut expression began to relax. Letting out a long sigh, her charisma sifted into that of a queen that radiated with an overbearing aura, before resting on Su Luo with eyes full of contempt. But right at this instant, Su Luo took a deep breath, screamed loudly, "Stronger!" Unexpectedly, the small weak flame that was on the brink of being extinguished slowly started to grow visibly stronger. Even though it didn't fully recover back to its peak intensity, it surely didn't look like it could get blown out at any moment anymore. Fairy Wu Yu's breath of confidence went up halfway to her throat, only for it to get stuck in there, stifling her with so much discomfort that her face became flushed. In her mind, she already cursed Su Luo's 18 generations of ancestors for 1,800 times. With everything going on, Even though Su Luo didn't look up, she could already guess her surrounding situation. A hint of slyness and happiness from her little success flashed across the depths of her eyes. With Su Luo's effort, the 6th gem was fully inlaid. There was only the 7th one left. The 7th purple gem clearly seemed bigger than all the other 6 gems, and was almost double in size than the rest. Su Luo took the gem and looked at Yan Xiao with contempt. Stir-frying those 76 targets, or steaming them to eat. You should start thinking about this problem. Making eye contact with Su Luo, Yan Xiao's heart turned cold, and he looked at the 76 targets. Yan Xiao really wanted to cry. Su Luo stroked the big gem in her hand with a smile in her eyes, though she was secretly brainstorming about her current situation. Would she stand out too much if she were to really inlay the 7th gem successfully? Would it make everyone suspicious that she might really possess exotic fire? Even if everyone wasn't suspicious about it at first, if Fairy Wuyu wanted to harm her, would she purposefully start a rumor? At that point, when everyone remembered back this entire scene, would it become evidence? Chapter 2232, Demon Clan's Fire Territory 4. Reaching this conclusion, Su Luo descended into a dilemma. Suddenly, Su Luo noticed Yan Xiao's figure sneakingly making his retreat. But since everyone had their focus on her, no one in the field had noticed that Yan Xiao was running away. His actions made Su Luo presume that Yan Xiao had a crush on her. How could he be so cute? It was as if he was preparing the bed for her to sleep whenever she felt tired. Since he was watching Su Luo's expression as he was trying to run away, she pretended to be brimming with confidence as she started to inlay the gem. The flame was becoming bigger and wilder, more alive than ever. After Yan Xiao had fled away and left no trace behind, Su Luo knew that her chance had arrived. When the gem was about to be embedded into the Chengying sword, suddenly Su Luo's forehead started to sweat, and there was white smoke coming out from the back of her head. Su Luo is running out of energy. Her last energy is spent. Hang in there. This is the last moment already. Don't give it up. Hey, please don't let your flame get extinguished. Under everyone's loud shouts of encouragement, the flame still continued to gradually, but surely die out. Yet again, the purple gem fell into Su Luo's hand. Su Luo gasped for air and waved. I can't continue anymore. I can't continue anymore. That pressure's too strong. My flame's energy capacity can't be compressed any further. Seeing the state Su Luo was in, everyone didn't doubt her words at all. I told you so. She definitely can't successfully inlay the 7th gem. That's right, no matter how strong it is, the spiritual fire she possesses is still an ordinary fire. If it was any kind of exotic fire, she definitely wouldn't encounter any problem at all. What a shame, she only missed it by just a bit. Oh, does that mean that Su Luo had lost this bet? Su Luo nodded. That's right, I've really lost this bet. Where is Yan Xiao? I should apologize to him. In any case, when they were setting the bet, Yan Xiao was proud of himself, resulting in him allowing Su Luo to not place any prize for losing the bet at all. Right, where is Yan Xiao? Everyone started to search for him. Only at that very moment did they realize that Yan Xiao was gone. Everyone was looking to their left and right, with all of them being stunned. Wasn't this the moment when he could show off his overbearing side? Where did he go? Then someone made a weak gesture. When Su Luo was inlaying the 7th gem and was just about to succeed, Yan Xiao suddenly ran away in the blink of an eye. The audience thought back to Yan Xiao and Su Luo's bet, looked at the 76 targets, before looking over to Fairy Wuyu. They instantly burst out into roaring laughter. They were laughing so much that they kneeled forward, their stomachs in knots as they tittered on the edge of collapse. At this moment, Fairy Wuyu's face turned so dark it appeared as though someone had infused black ink into her face, to the point that one would be able to squeeze black ink out of her. How embarrassing! This was utterly humiliating. Fairy Wuyu had never been this humiliated before. Yan Xiao was one of her people. If he had run away because he feared losing a bet, he was outright embarrassing her. If he had lost, Yan Xiao's escape could barely be explained. However, he had clearly won the bet, but then he wasn't here anymore. Not only was he not able to enjoy his victory, But he had also embarrassed himself by a large mile. In fact, Fairy Wuyu wanted to kill Yin Xiao with a slap. Su Luo then put up an act of being confused and innocent. Where's Yin Xiao? Why don't I see Yin Xiao anymore? If he isn't here, who can I apologize to? If he wanted to leave, he should at least say something, right? Would anyone run away halfway through a bet? Su Luo turned over to look at Fairy Wuyu. Senior Sister Wuyu, didn't Yin Xiao win? Why did he run away? CH 2233. Demon Clan's Fire Territory 5. Fairy Wuyu's forehead vein was twitching violently. She was so mad that she seemed about to breathe out fire. Pretend, still pretending, just keep pretending. Fairy Wuyu was cursing Su Luo in her heart, wanting nothing more than to give her a good thrashing. At this time, the 8th elder walked toward them and announced, "After 2 hours, the third part of the lecture will begin." Third part of the lecture? There was actually a third part of the lecture. Everyone looked at Fairy Wuyu, then looked at Su Luo with malice, the mockery in their eyes silent but evident. Fairy Wuyu had lost face several times in front of Su Luo during the previous 2 parts of the lecture. How could she swallow this anger? If there was a third part of the lecture, then there would be some juicy tea to sip. Everyone's hearts were full of anticipation. After hearing that there would be a third part to the lecture, Fairy Wuyu immediately felt so much better. Her eyes were bright with excitement, and the gaze she directed towards Su Luo was even more stranger than before. Li Man cautioned Su Luo. "The third part of the lecture is generally combat fighting on the field. You must be careful." After all, on Fairy Wuyu's side, just one of her was enough to destroy 10 of Su Luo. Su Luo showed a faint smile, as if she wasn't worried at all. But no one, even Su Luo and Fairy Wuyu themselves, knew that this time, the most dangerous person to Su Luo wasn't Fairy Wuyu. The third part of the lecture happened at the Demon Clan's Fire Territory, which was a 5,000 kilometers land up north from the Genius Training Camp. The Flame Mountains were connected one after another. It was rumored that this whole territory was 9.6 million square kilometers. This mountain range alone was probably the size of China, where Su Luo had lived in her previous life. The 8th elder was standing in front of everyone, coldly observing their surroundings. "We are entering from the south gate and exiting from the north gate. The rules are very simple. There are no rules. The only thing you need to do is to make it out alive." Inside the Demon Clan's Fire Territory, there is a small black house, and inside it is a small flag. Only after finding the small flag can you guys get out of this place, because this flag is the key to opening the north gate. The 8th elder looked at Fairy Wuyu and added another sentence. "Remember, any personal affairs can be resolved on the life and death battle stage. If you kill each other in private, then you will forever be expelled from the dragon list." The 8th elder's words were clearly biased towards Su Luo. Su Luo raised her brows in surprise. She couldn't guess what medicine the 8th elder was trying to sell from his gourd carrot too at that moment. When Fairy Wuyu heard this emphasized reminder from the 8th elder, she was angered in her heart, and hit Su Luo with a glance furious and violent. Su Luo smiled at her, and her smile was as brilliant as cherry blossoms, revealing her 2 rows of pretty white teeth. Fairy Wuyu became even angrier. The 8th elder's glance stayed on Su Luo for a brief moment. His eyes were as deep and unpredictable as the ocean. Then, just as Su Luo was growing puzzled over what had happened, his eyes moved away. Su Luo frowned deeply, sensing a bad premonition. What exactly did the 8th elder want to do? Without allowing Su Luo any time to think over this further, Fairy Wuyu coldly smirked at her. "Inside the Demon Clan's Fire Territory, it is extremely dangerous. If you aren't afraid of death, then follow me in." And so, Fairy Wuyu brought all of her servants with her, walking proudly at the front. "Let's go." Su Luo and Li Man slowly followed the group, and entered the south gate of the Demon Clan's Fire Territory. The Demon Clan's Fire Territory was basically a small fire world filled with a powerful fire. There were a flaming river, flaming rocks, and even various magical beasts born from the flames. After entering the Demon Clan's Fire Territory, since the 8th elder wasn't present, Fairy Wuyu felt like she deserved to be the class's leader, so she naturally ordered, "Emoze, bring 5 people with you to clear out the beasts." Xiao Yun, Bring 5 people with you to find the small black house, shall you? Ch 2234. The truth 1. Fairy Wuyu was giving out orders to everyone. They all listened obediently, without the slightest intention of refusing. Within minutes, they left one by one to fulfill their assignments. At last, only Su Luo and Li Man remained. Fairy Wuyu didn't even bother to look at Su Luo. She smoothly turned around and walked away with self-importance. Of course, the men by her side were all surrounding her, helping her clear the way so that she didn't have to lift a finger. After seeing everyone else leave, Li Man was stunned. She just stood there looking at Su Luo. What about us? They had been left behind just like that? Su Luo smiled slightly. Was Fairy Wuyu trying to isolate them by ignoring them? Even though it was a very childish method, it was extremely effective. Since there were many fire element beasts in the area, if they were surrounded, Li Man and Su Luo would be in danger. Hence, Su Luo reminded Li Man, "Be careful, if we are surrounded, then we will be in great danger." Li Man nodded solemnly. Then, unaware of her own movement, she stepped closer toward Su Luo, because she had a sense of security when she was near Su Luo. Su Luo and Li Man dealt with the flame beasts while continuing to follow the others. By then, Fairy Wuyu had schemed against them a few times, but fortunately, she had no intention of killing Su Luo yet. If Su Luo died right now, then the 1-year contract would automatically be cancelled, and she wouldn't be able to get senior brother Luo. However, Su Luo wasn't bothered by Fairy Wuyu's small tricks. Since she had the exotic fire of the fallen red lotus in her possession, after entering the demon clan's fire territory, she was as comfortable as a fish entering water, just as she was in her own home. These ordinary flames had an instinctive reverence for the fallen red lotus, so as long as Su Luo made a move, no matter how powerful the beasts were, they would automatically stay away. Hence, Fairy Wuyu's attempts at harming Su Luo failed. However, as they went deeper and deeper into the demon clan's fire territory, Su Luo's bad premonitions grew heavier. She felt as if someone were watching from the darkness every single move she made, especially when she used the fallen red lotus. That pair of eyes would become extremely intense, fierce and excited. Su Luo's eyebrows furrowed. "What are you worrying about?" Li Man looked at Su Luo with confusion. Along this whole process, Li Man's respect for Su Luo was like the endless water of the Yellow River. Every time they stepped into a trap, Su Luo would resolve all of the troubles unhurriedly. Su Luo's calmness made her almost believe that this was just a visit to a friend's house. "Do you feel something off about the current situation?" Su Luo asked in a low voice. "No, not really." "For example, feeling like someone is watching you?" Su Luo asked carefully. "No, not really." Li Man was confused. All right. Su Luo knew that, even if Li Man could feel it, with her personality, she would probably think she had mistakenly sensed it. Li Man saw Su Luo's cold expression, and couldn't help probing. Really? Could it be Fairy Wuyu? After all of their interactions within this period of time, Li Man naturally stood on Su Luo's side. Her impression toward Fairy Wuyu had greatly reduced, and it was even developing into a deep hate. Su Luo gently shook her head. Fairy Wuyu was indeed stronger than her, but she wasn't outrageously strong to this point, so it was probably not her. But within this demon clan's fire territory, the strongest person was Fairy Wuyu. Who else was there besides her? Chapter 2235. The Truth 2. A name instantly appeared in Su Luo's mind. Was it him? Su Luo narrowed her eyes dangerously. Although she didn't quite believe it, she felt that the person staring at her from behind was most likely the 8th elder. Could it be that the 8th elder wanted to avenge his little disciple Lan Ningyan? Su Luo thought. However, Su Luo didn't know that she had guessed half of it correctly. The person who was spying on her from the shadows was, indeed, the 8th elder, but he was not looking to seek revenge from Su Luo because of Lan Ningyan. In fact, the 8th elder was playing a big game of chess. Even from the very beginning, when he replaced the 7th elder in teaching the class, that was the first move he had made. Back then, Lan Ningyan had been burned to a pile of ashes by Su Luo, and while the 8th elder was naturally furious, He didn't lash out on the spot. However, only after everyone had left he went to inspect the scene. As expected, there was nothing left at the scene, and even that bit of Lan Ningyan's ashes had disappeared, but the eighth elder was able to see some clues from it. After that, he had Su Luo investigated, starting from Su Luo's assessment in the genius training camp, to the assessment at Distal End Mountain, to the downstream mountain, then the midstream mountain. With all the information he had collected, he was able to discover a secret. Su Luo was able to challenge others above her every time, and each time she was able to make it through without any dangers. What she relied on was her fire attribute. Spiritual fire, mystic fire, and metamorphosis fire were all the most powerful types of common fire attributes, but the eighth elder knew that even with spiritual fire, one couldn't win a battle against someone ranked 7 stars higher. Why was the eighth elder so confident that spiritual fire couldn't achieve this? Because on this continent, there were only a handful of people who could use spiritual fire, and the eighth elder happened to be one of them. Since he knew that spiritual fire couldn't do it, then all of those possibilities were eliminated, and there was only one possibility remaining: the magical fire of the fallen red lotus. The eighth elder had once obtained a unique book regarding the fallen red lotus from the ancient ruins. He had hidden this book well, and no one aside from him had ever seen it. This was how he had made a guess based on the characteristics of the fallen red lotus, judging from Su Luo's body. This bold assumption shocked the eighth elder himself, but then the agitation and excitement, as well as greed, were like tarsal maggots gnawing constantly at his heart. So the eighth elder laid out this game, and easily got the position to teach the lecture, this time from the seventh elder. In the lecture hall, he deliberately talked about the fire attribute, even the exotic fire. At that time, Su Luo's expression had been calm and relaxed, and even the eighth elder could not see through it. Then there was the following practical portion of the class. This practical class had confirmed the eighth elder's internal speculations to some extent, and then there was the trip they took into the flame cavern. When the fallen red lotus arrived at the flame cavern, it would be like returning a fish back to the water, becoming the equivalent of a king. After observing all along the way, he became more and more excited as he watched her. The eighth elder admittedly had to sigh at Su Luo's good luck. To have such a strange encounter at such a young age, to carry such a treasure, and to keep such a low profile about it too. After confirming that Su Luo was carrying exotic fire, the greed in the eighth elder's heart could no longer be contained. What Lan Ningyan, what little disciple? This wasn't a matter to him at all. His head was now full of schemes on how to seize the exotic fire from Su Luo's body. As for the method, in the cheat book he had obtained, there was actually a way. Hiding in the darkness, the eighth elder looked at Su Luo, who was frowning in front of him. Then his malicious eyes flashed slightly while he laughed without a sound. Chapter 2236. The Truth 3. Su Luo was aware of the danger, but did not expect that it would be so close to her. Before they knew it, everyone had already been in the demon clan's fire territory for several days. As they got closer and closer to the core of the flame cavern, there were more and more flame monsters, with greater and greater strength, making the fighting become more and more difficult. Suddenly someone shouted, "There is a little black spot over there. Isn't it the little black house we're looking for?" The task set by the eighth elder was to find the little black house, and after getting the banner, they could go back with the token. "Let's go. Go and take a look." Fairy Wuyo's eyes gleamed with excitement, and she couldn't wait to rush over. Right as they saw Fairy Wuyu rushing past, everyone followed suit without hesitation. The distance of 10-1 seemed to be very far, but for these extraordinary people, it was covered in only a matter of minutes. Soon, they saw a small black house standing in front of them. It truly was the little black house. The building wasn't tall. From the looks of it, there was only a single story. Furthermore, it had a square design, standing alone in the middle like the symbol of order. "Don't worry, we have looked for it. There is only this small black house within 1,000 miles. The exit token that the eighth elder mentioned should be inside." Emoze said to Fairy Wuyu, "This should be it." Fairy Wuyu looked at the map in her hand, compared it with the position they were in at the moment, and nodded her head in agreement. However, not only did Fairy Wuyu know that there was a banner present inside for them to leave, there would also be a treasure chest. As for whether it contained a treasure or not, that would depend on one's luck. You all wait outside, I'll go in alone. Fairy Wuyu gave the order and started to walk forward. Right at this moment, Li Man Man mustered up her courage and yelled at Fairy Wuyu. Wait! Fairy Wuyu shot a cold look at her, but Li Man Man puffed her chest, held her head high and took a step forward. You can't go. Oh, so the little last place girl dares to be arrogant to me? Fairy Wuyu made no attempt to hide the annoyed look in her eyes. I have always been the one to go in first, why can't I go this time? Li Man Man clenched her fists and replied with a serious face. According to the regulations, the one who can enter the small black room must be the best student in class. This is her privilege, so you can't take it away. As soon as she said this, Fairy Wuyu frowned deeply, and her eyes filled with anger like an erupting volcano. There were a number of people who had been discontent at Fairy Wuyu. At that moment, with Li Man Man taking the lead, this group of people also called out. Li Man Man's words are not unreasonable. According to customary tradition, it is indeed the best student in the class that should enter there first. Furthermore, it should be her who will lead us out. Although Fairy Wuyu is number 1 in terms of strength, Su Luo is the best in class, as she had managed to hit 72 bullseyes. So this time the person who can enter the small black room first should be Su Luo. Many people knew that it was a great privilege to be the first person to enter the small black house, because that person would get the chance to open the treasure box. If luck was by their side, it wasn't impossible to obtain a great treasure. That was the reward for the best student in the class, a customary rule that had been established through common agreement. At that moment, everyone's eyes were moving back and forth between Fairy Wuyu and Su Luo. Those who were more aware of what was going on were even hoping that the two of them would clash. Chapter 2237. The Truth 4. In comparison, Su Luo was simply too calm. Suppressing the anger in her heart, Fairy Wuyu shot a piercing glare at Su Luo. The people who supported Fairy Wuyu even started to shout out to support her. With Su Luo's ability, how can she compete with our Fairy Wuyu? She won the last class only through pure luck. With her pathetic level of strength, are you sure she can even get the flag? Are you sure that Su Luo can safely take out the flag and lead us out? What if Su Luo fails? Won't we be trapped here forever? It's one thing if you don't care about your own life, but sorry, I treasure my life, so I prefer Fairy Wuyu to enter the little black house. Hence, those questions, accusations, and doubts proceeded to pound Su Luo to the ground. Those who originally wanted to watch a good show came back to their senses after hearing these words. Yes, this was a matter of life, not a child's play. Su Luo's strength was so useless. How can she lead them out? Moze and the others were right. They should trust in Fairy Wuyu during critical times like this. After all, her combat strength was the strongest among them all. I support Fairy Wuyu. I also support Fairy Wuyu. You must support Fairy Wuyu. No one is better than Fairy Wuyu this time. One by one, they all quickly walked towards Fairy Wuyu's side. In just a brief span of time, there were already many people lined up behind Fairy Wuyu. In contrast, Li Man Man was the only one left by Su Luo's side. Li Man Man was so angry that she was about to explode. Pointing at them, she retorted, "How can you all do this? Su Luo's clearly the best student in the last class. Fairy Wuyu really was a bully." Li Man Man made threatening gestures as she attempted to rush forward, but Su Luo quickly stopped her. "Don't be impulsive." Su Luo discouraged her in a low voice. But Li Man Man was so furious that her eyes flushed red. "This is too unfair. With the good luck you possess, you might even be able to obtain some treasures. If that is so, they definitely mustn't allow Su Luo to enter, otherwise, she will rise above everyone." Similar thoughts appeared in the hearts of many people. Thus, they said with even more conviction, "It was only through pure luck that Su Luo got to the first place in last class. We can't bet our lives on Su Luo's good fortune." That's right. We can't place our lives on Su Luo's luck. Therefore, this time we must ask Fairy Wuyu to go in. Even if the 8th elder criticizes us, We will do our best to bear the blame. As the saying goes, the law doesn't punish everyone. Even if the eighth elder was angry, he couldn't do anything to this group of people, right? That was why they could be so emboldened. Earlier, Fairy Wuyu's anger was like a raging inferno. However, after everyone turned to her side, it was gradually extinguished. The smile on her face was widened, as she squinted at Su Luo condescendingly. Actually, I really don't want to go in. Su Luo smiled. Fairy Wuyu spoke slowly while giving a condescending sigh. Since everyone asked me with such enthusiasm and sincerity, I couldn't turn them down. But speaking about this, you really should look at yourself, little girl. Oh, Su Luo responded with a smile, appearing not at all fazed by their words. Fairy Wuyu hated Su Luo's relaxed, leisured appearance the most. It made her feel very unsatisfied. Chapter 2238. The Truth 5. Su Luo replied with a faint but refreshing smile. Is that so? But times do change, so maybe it will turn towards you soon. If Fairy Wuyu, who had always been considered a heartthrob, would one day become shunned by the masses, wouldn't that be the biggest blow? Me? Being shunned by people? Ha ha ha, Su Luo, you don't even know if you can wait till that day. There is no man who doesn't like me. Fairy Wuyu was bursting at the seams with confidence. Su Luo didn't care for Fairy Wuyu's crazy rambling, as she just pulled Li Man back a step, and gestured the invitation to Fairy Wuyu. This was taking the initiative to avoid giving the opportunity to Fairy Wuyu. At this time, many people showed contempt at Su Luo. In the previous practice class, many people were shocked by Su Luo and felt slightly amicable to her. However, seeing her cowardly in such a stoic manner towards Fairy Wuyu, their gazes towards Su Luo all turned into loathing. Nevertheless, like before, Su Luo continued to smile as lightly as a gentle breeze. Consider yourself wise. Fairy Wuyu glanced at Su Luo contemptuously, then sneered and proudly stepped into that legendary small black room. Only one person could enter the small black room. After Su Luo watched the door of the small black room closed with a click, a cunning smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. Previously, she clearly felt the gaze that had been staring at her disappeared. Su Luo asked Little Sable to remember the scent on that person's body. Just now, when Fairy Wuyu opened the door of the small black room, the smell instantly confirmed Su Luo's guess. Presently, except for Su Luo, the rest of the people still did not know the inside story. There were still a few people pretending to comfort her. Don't be sad, there will be a chance next time. Yeah, maybe next time Fairy Wuyu would be among the top 50th in the next test, then you'll have a better chance at entering. After all, you have a good potential. We are not compelled to do so, I hope you don't blame us. Su Luo smiled. It's okay, if I were you, I would also have made such a choice. Went to that small black room to die. Su Luo was not willing to do so. Since Fairy Wuyu was so eager to prevent this disaster for her, Su Luo was more than happy to let her. How could she refuse? At this time, Fairy Wuyu was already in the middle of the small black room. This literally was a small black room. You couldn't even see the fingers of your hand in there. Although Fairy Wuyu had good eyes and could usually see everything well in the dark, she found that she couldn't see anything after entering the small black room. The small flag was usually placed on the table, and the treasure chest was underneath. This was what Fairy Wuyu had always experienced. Fairy Wuyu felt her way through the room, and then step by step, she worked her way to the edge of the table. She didn't care for the small flag, thus her first pick was to bend down to open the treasure chest. Hope that I'll have good luck this time to open a golden treasure chest. Fairy Wuyu folded her hands in front of her chest and prayed in silence. After praying, she began to unlock it. Fairy Wuyu pulled out a vermilion hairpin from her head, aimed at the lock cylinder, and skillfully began to unlock it. She was quick with excitement. Crack crack, the lock quickly opened. Fairy Wuyu dropped the lock and excitedly opened the chest with one hand. Her hands quickly reached inside to rummage. Rare object, there must be a rare item. Fairy Wuyu's mind was completely focused on the treasure chest at this time. Therefore she didn't notice a dark figure approaching from behind. Chapter 2239. The Truth 6. At this moment, the black shadow suddenly lunged at Fairy Wuyu's back. Boom. Poor Fairy Wuyu was bent over, with her buttocks raised as she groped around the box for treasures. She was in no state to be aware of the danger coming from behind. The man sent a kick forward, which so happened to land right on Fairy Wuyu's rear end. In an instant, Fairy Wuyu's head smashed right against the treasure chest. Fairy Wuyu was about to swear out in anger, but the man slammed his fist on Fairy Wuyu's chin, dislocating her jaw, leaving her unable to utter a sound. Within this jet-black darkness, her visibility had been reduced to zero. Fairy Wuyu was utterly clueless about the identity of the other party. She wanted to yell out in anger, but she realized that her jaw had been dislocated. She couldn't say anything. Fairy Wuyu subconsciously raised her hand to her chin to snap it back into place. However, before her hand could touch it, another wave of clear cracks rang out. Both Fairy Wuyu's left and right hand's joints were dislocated. At this moment, Fairy Wuyu couldn't even cry even if she wanted to. Who the heck was this person? How could he possess such immense strength? Fairy Wuyu lifted her leg to try for a deadly kick towards the opponent's groin. Even in the dark, Fairy Wuyu, who was very experienced in dealing with men, could detect the masculine breath from the other person. This was a man. And so, the two of them attacked each other with terrifying might. Poor Fairy Wuyu. With her inferior strength, she ended up being beaten badly by the opponent. Her nose was bruised. Her face was swollen and endlessly throbbing in pain. All she could do was keep sending out flames. Nonetheless, her opponent was much stronger than her. During the battle, the flames quickly burned the flag on the table. Under the illumination of the light, everything was clear as in daylight. Upon seeing Fairy Wuyu's face, the man in black was startled, and a trace of annoyance flashed in his eyes. Fairy Wuyu also saw the man in black. Despite the black scarf that covered his face and a black hat on his head, his eyes had an inexplicable sense of familiarity, but she couldn't recall who that was. While the other party was stunned, Fairy Wuyu hurriedly pushed her jaw back into place and shouted angrily, "Who are you?" The man in black stared at Fairy Wuyu with surprise and uncertainty in his eyes, but it soon turned into even more frustration. "Speak. Did you steal the treasure in the treasure chest?" Fairy Wuyu yelled angrily. The man in black gave Fairy Wuyu a fierce look, and he then turned and left. From his back, one could tell that he was in a bad mood. However, Fairy Wuyu was furious and grabbed the other party's arm. "You can't just come and go like that, nut job. Quickly, hand over the treasure." The man in black was very angry. He turned around, stared at Fairy Wuyu fiercely, and clenched his fists. Fairy Wuyu kept blabbering on. How could the man in black have the patience to listen to her? He proceeded to raise his arm, before smashing it down Fairy Wuyu's back with his fist. Fairy Wuyu's eyes widened and looked at the man in disbelief as her body collapsed limply on the ground. Unlucky. The man in black shot a vicious glare at Fairy Wuyu, before proceeding to stride away. Fairy Wuyu did not come out for a long time. There were many people standing outside the little black room, with all of them discussing enthusiastically what kind of treasure Fairy Wuyu would bring out this time. Is there even a point in guessing? It must be a good thing. It might even be a secret book. Chapter 2240. Ominousness 1. I think it might be a spiritual flame. Maybe it is a strengthening gem, one that is more powerful than the 7 stars pearls. Everyone's guesses flew back and forth, but there was no general consensus. On the contrary, after seeing Fairy Wuyu hadn't come out for a long time, the smile present in Su Luo's eyes became more and more meaningful. Li Man asked Su Luo what she was laughing at, but Su Luo chuckled and said nothing. Soon, someone noticed the problem. Fairy Wuyu has been in there for a long time, right? It has been about 2 hours. There is something not quite right about this. Based on past experience, Fairy Wuyu should have come out a long time ago. Did something come up? That's impossible, right? Fairy Wuyu is the strongest among us. Nothing has happened to us, so what could even happen there? Furthermore, she is the only one in the little black room. What can happen to her? Could it be that the treasure was so powerful that Fairy Wuyu cultivated it on the spot for a promotion? Someone had that wishful line of thinking. Nevertheless, this idea had won the support of many people. Everyone nodded and said, "It is very likely that this might be the case." The corner of Su Luo's mouth curled up slightly, and as she looked at the door of the little black room, a glimmer of excitement flashed within her beautiful eyes. At this moment, the door of the little black house opened. Slowly, a clear figure came out. The moment they saw that figure, everyone gasped loudly, stunned by what they saw. This weird person, who is it? What people saw was her swollen nose and face and messy hair, a face covered with blood stains, and her clothes being very, very dirty. No way, Fairy Wuyu. Those Fairy Wuyu's male followers were first in disbelief. Their entire group was shocked to the core, their eyeballs freezing up at the sight of her. Fairy Wuyu took care of her beauty to the extreme. Even when sleeping at night, she wouldn't remove her makeup. But here was the person with blackened bruises and a swelling, reddened face. Could this actually be her? Very quickly, everyone's eyes moved to the hands of Fairy Wuyu. She held a black stick in her hand with nothing else. Someone boldly asked, "Well, what's about the flag?" Those words immediately reminded everyone. It wasn't a joke to send Fairy Wuyu into the little black room. She represented the whole class to get the flag, but where was the flag now? Without the flag, how would the people be able to pass the North Gate? In an instant, everyone's eyes were all focused on Fairy Wuyu. Now everyone was anxious. "Fairy Wuyu, what has occurred inside? What did you encounter? Where's the flag? Where's our flag? Weren't you brimming with confidence when you headed in to get the flag? Yes, stop hiding it. Hurry up and bring out the flag." Fairy Wuyu's heart stiffened at this moment. She felt so aggrieved that she was on the brink of vomiting blood. If time could be turned back, she would definitely not compete with Su Luo to enter this small black room. Nevertheless, there was no medicine for regret in the world. Even though the situation now was pretty bad, the ever-so-arrogant Fairy Wuyu still widened her eyes with an imposing attitude. "What are you shouting for? Isn't the flag in my hand?" Fairy Wuyu remembered clearly that she did grab onto the flag before coming out. Just that stick. Someone pointed at the black iron rod in Fairy Wuyu's hand and shouted in disbelief, "A stick?" Fairy Wuyu got angry and stretched out her hand to pass the flag over. "What stick are you talking about?" Just before she finished the sentence, something had swelled up in Fairy Wuyu's throat. She couldn't make a single sound. If this wasn't a stick, then what was it? Chapter 2241. Ominousness 2. Because the little black room had been as dark as ink, when Fairy Wuyu woke up, she was blinded and confused. Nonetheless, she remembered that it was good enough to just pull out the flag, but only now did she discover that it was actually nothing more than a stick. In a lightning-quick flash, Fairy Wuyu suddenly remembered the fight inside. There had been clusters of flames that had bursted out at that time, and it was likely that the flag had been accidentally burned. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on Fairy Wuyu. The gaze in their eyes was complicated. Fairy Wuyu's voice was hesitant, not knowing what to say for a while. But how could everyone spare her that easily? How can we get out of the North Gate without a flag? Are we going to use this useless stick? This is a matter that concerns dozens of lives. Fairy Wuyu, how could you do this? That's right. Su Luo was originally supposed to go in. We let you go in because we believed in your strength. How could you let down our trust like this? That's right. You got the treasures for yourself but burned our flag like this. How can you be so selfish? If we had known this would happen, we might as well have let Su Luo go in. This last sentence pierced deeply through the soft heart of Fairy Wuyu. She felt wronged, annoyed, and aggrieved. Fairy Wuyu hissed and roared with exhaustion. Wish you had known, wish you had known. I too wish I had known. Had I known it would be like this earlier, I would have let Su Luo go in. It's not like I wanted to enter. Fairy Wuyu was known to be graceful and holy. Who had ever witnessed such a wretched roar from Fairy Wuyu? In such an embarrassing manner? This was a great insight for everyone to know. And they all looked at Fairy Wuyu with a ray of disbelief. Fairy Wuyu turned her head and stared at Su Luo fiercely. She clenched her fist and said angrily, Suluo, are you happy now? You got your wish. Aren't you satisfied? Suluo displayed a confused and innocent look on her face. Fairy Wuyu, don't rush to blame and frame good people without any evidence. You turned our flag into this now. How are we going to get out? Fairy Wuyu had wanted to change the topic by throwing her temper tantrum, but Suluo had brought back the matter with her words. That caused Fairy Wuyu to immediately get angry again. That's right. Fairy Wuyu, what do you think we should do now? How are you going to compensate us? Didn't you enter the little black room by yourself and take the good things from there? That's right, you have to pay for this. Otherwise, this matter will not end. We must be compensated for the danger of staying in this demon clan's fire territory for one more day. Fairy Wuyu was so angry that she almost burst out with a mouthful of blood. There was nothing in the box inside. This was the truth, but who would believe it? Anyway, nobody believed her words, and all of them looked at Fairy Wuyu with a condemning, questioning, and accusing gaze. From the one with 1,000,000 fans to the mud puddle that anyone could trample on. How could Fairy Wuyu bear this vexation? Nonetheless, Fairy Wuyu knew very well that she had caused the wrath of everyone, and the only way to settle them down was giving them compensation. Well, alright, aren't you all just clamoring for compensation? Fine, I can compensate you. Emoze, give each one of them a strengthening gem. Fairy Wuyu roared. Emoze. His biggest hobby was collecting all kinds of strengthening gems. It had taken a lot of effort and hard work to form his collection. How could he? What are you dawdling for? Still not hurrying and distributing them? Don't tell me you don't have any. Didn't you show them off in front of me last time? Fairy Wuyu angrily said. Emoze was crying. He had shown them to Fairy Wuyu for her to appreciate. It hadn't been to show off. Chapter 2242. Ominousness 3. But Emoze knew very well that if he didn't save Fairy Wuyu's face now, then in the future, she would definitely not let him near her bed again. In desperation, Emoze took out the strengthening gems from the space storage bag and distributed them one by one to everyone with great reluctance, expressing a manner of compensation. Although everyone felt that it was not enough, this was not a good time to further force anything. The most important question now was which way should they go next? It was no longer possible for them to exit from the north gate. Just at that moment, the eighth elder strolled over. Seeing the eighth elder, everyone regained their senses and bombarded him with questions on what they should do. The eighth elder's expression went dark, his face was stern, his tiger eyes were cold, and he shot a cold look at the group. His eyes were deep and complex when he glanced over Fairy Wuyu. When he looked at Suluo, he flashed with a slight imperceptible cold aura. I must say you all have failed this lesson. Every single one of you have lost. The eighth elder was terrifying the moment he opened his mouth. Everyone bowed their heads to listen to his teachings. Do you know where you went wrong? There was implicit anger in the eighth elder's voice. After a moment of silence, someone raised their hands weakly. We shouldn't have let Fairy Wuyu in. It should have been perhaps Suluo instead, who was the best in the last class. Like a blind cat that caught a dead mouse, the classmate had guessed correctly. The eighth elder spoke in a cold voice, his complexion like frost. You didn't follow the rules, so you lost your chance of success. To exit from the north gate is no longer possible. So your only option is to go from the east gate. The eighth elder glared at everyone. Going to the east gate from here will be infinitely dangerous. You are on your own. After speaking, the eighth elder flicked his sleeves, then turned and left. Fairy Wuyu looked at the retreating back of the furious eighth elder, and suddenly felt that his gaze from just now was so familiar, and the shape of his back was also familiar. She felt a hunch flashing in her mind, but she couldn't pinpoint what it was. Wuyu, is there something wrong? Are you uncomfortable? Emoze asked with concern when he saw Fairy Wuyu holding her head. Fairy Wuyu frowned. I keep feeling that I've missed something very important, but I can't put my finger on it. Emoze comforted. What happened to you there? I was attacked. Wuyu patted her head and sighed. The man in black. Suddenly, Wuyu's head throbbed. A vision flashed in her mind, and she caught it immediately. In an instant, She turned pale and staggered where she stood. What's the matter? Mose was horrified when he saw Wuyu's body and mind tremble. Fairy Wuyu remembered now. She finally knew where the familiarity of the man in black had come from. The man in black inside was covered in dark cloth. Even his forehead and nose were hidden. However, Fairy Wuyu had encountered countless men, and she could clearly distinguish them by their body odor. At that moment, she was almost certain that the person was the eighth elder. The eighth elder? How could it have been him? Why did he ambush and attack her? Wuyu felt that her head was getting bigger. Wuyu. Mose couldn't stop worrying. Fairy Wuyu waved her hand. Let me be alone for a while. Fairy Wuyu had just realized that the eighth elder had hidden in there and deliberately ambushed her. She was so frightened at that moment. What mood did she have left to respond to Mose's concern? On the way to the east afterwards, Fairy Wuyu was unnaturally quiet, and rarely rushed to provoke Su Luo, which allowed Su Luo's ears to finally rest for a while. Chapter 2243. Ominousness 4. It was no wonder that the eighth elder had said that traveling to the east would be very dangerous. Setting other factors aside, the rising temperature alone was already unbearable. When passing a mountain range, Su Luo's eyes suddenly flashed. Because she had the fallen red lotus, she was very sensitive to fire attributes. At that moment, there was a flaming mountain range to her right, which looked very similar to the dragon ascending 9 heavens. Su Luo could clearly feel the suffocating temperature inside. Such a high internal temperature was extremely abnormal. It was like the entire Earth's core magma was boiling. But when Su Luo glanced over, she found that no one had noticed the abnormality inside. Because from the outside, this dragon ascending 9 heavens mountain range appeared no different from the rest of the mountains. Seeing Su Luo pausing in her tracks, Li Man asked curiously, "What's the matter? What level is your flame?" Su Luo asked. 4th class true fire. Li Man sighed. Still, you are amazing. You have a 1st class spiritual fire, and you could disintegrate Lan Ningyan just by making a move. Su Luo smiled bitterly. Her strength was not some kind of spiritual fire, rather it was the legendary fallen red lotus. How could any spiritual fire be so powerful? If we have a chance, I will help you catch high-level flames. Su Luo's gaze swept across the dragon ascending 9 heavens mountain range. Really? That would be great. Li Man exclaimed. They went on for about an hour, and were passing through a cave of burning flames. Right at that moment, an exclamation sounded from the front. Quick, there seems to be a cluster of metamorphosis fire flashing up ahead. Metamorphosis fire? Metamorphosis fire was a 2nd class flame. For many people, it was something that couldn't be obtained. Just like Fairy Wuyu who had in her hands the very same magic fire. Everyone chased them down separately. Whoever catches it will get to keep it. Fairy Wuyu gave the order. After compensating them with the strengthening gems, Fairy Wuyu had remained the leader. As soon as her words came out, everyone obeyed without hesitation. And so everyone promptly split up and spread out. Metamorphosis fire. Li Man looked at Su Luo excitedly, because Su Luo had just promised to help her find high-level flames. She didn't expect to be able to have a high-ranking spiritual fire like Su Luo. She would be satisfied if she had the metamorphosis fire. Su Luo looked up. Let's go into the flame cavern. Su Luo pulled Li Man and quickly shot into the flame cavern. Because she had a special sensitivity to flames, she knew that the metamorphosis fire had entered it. After Su Luo went into the flame cavern, a few more figures flashed past. Look, the metamorphosis fire is over there. Li Man's eyes were sharp, and when she saw the light blue flame, her whole body shook with excitement. But at that moment, Fairy Wuyu suddenly appeared in front of Su Luo, staring at Su Luo coldly. The metamorphosis fire belongs to me, you can get out now. Li Man shot back angrily. You think that simply because you say so, it will belong to you? Why are you so overbearing? Didn't you just announce that whoever found it could keep it? Oh, first that stinky girl Su Luo dared to talk back to me, and now you? You have some guts. Mose and the others went after the metamorphosis fire, while Fairy Wuyu walked slowly towards Li Man Man. Chapter 2244. Ominousness 5. Fairy Wuyu smiled coldly. Even you also dare to ridicule me? After saying that, Fairy Wuyu raised her hand and ruthlessly struck at Li Man Man. If she was hit, not only her face would be ruined, her very life would be in danger. Su Luo subconsciously grabbed onto Li Man Man, pulling her aside, and Fairy Wuyu's hand fell on nothing but the air. Fairy Wuyu looked up and glared fixedly at Su Luo. By now, this was the accumulated fury from grudges both new and old. Fairy Wuyu sneered. Do you think you can protect her? Su Luo furrowed her brows. It was no surprise that Fairy Wuyu would be so fearlessly confident. At this point, even if Su Luo and Li Man Man were to team up and be multiplied several times over, it still wouldn't be enough to be Fairy Wuyu's opponent. If they couldn't fight, then it was best to flee. If Su Luo was by herself, then she would obviously turn tail as fast as possible. However, since Li Man Man was also here, if Su Luo ran, she would certainly die. Su Luo racked her brains hurriedly, hoping that she could quickly come up with a plan that solved both problems quickly. At this moment, with a savage expression and terrifying sneer on her face, Fairy Wuyu was advancing step by step towards Su Luo. Hidden from Fairy Wuyu's view, several words were quickly traced on the palm of Li Man Man's hand that Su Luo was grabbing. Fairy Wuyu had already gotten very close to Su Luo. Su Luo could see her arms trembling with rage and the blue veins on the back of her hands that pulsed ferociously. At that very moment, "Pa!" a clear slapping sound rang out. Su Luo savagely swung her palm at Fairy Wuyu, who had let her guard down, and also spat out a sentence. You cheap, utterly shameless whore. No longer daring to stay after cursing her, Su Luo speedily fled. Fairy Wuyu was taken by surprise. To think that she had been slapped so ferociously, and before she could even react to that, Su Luo had cursed her with words that made her blood boil. In an instant, Fairy Wuyu's head was filled with endless fury. Why would she even bother with Li Man Man anymore? One could only see her figure charge forwards explosively, fiercely chasing after Su Luo, while screaming, You wretched brat, stand still. Fairy Wuyu had never been slapped by anyone in her whole lifetime, nor had she ever been cursed with words so obscene. At this moment, her reasoning had already been consumed by fury, and the only thing on her mind was to tear Su Luo to shreds. Li Man Man watched the two figures rapidly become two black dots, one in front and one behind. Momentarily stunned, her eyes grew red, and she clenched her fists where she stood. With how formidable Fairy Wuyu was, would Su Luo get caught? The more she thought about this, the more she worried she became. No, since she couldn't help Su Luo in any way, it was better to not risk being a hindrance. Just now Su Luo had written on her hand, telling her to hide. Li Man Man took a deep breath, calmed herself down, then swiftly concealed her figure. Su Luo's reaction was quick, and her speed was at its peak, because she knew that once she was caught up to by Fairy Wuyu, she would be finished. But Su Luo sighed as she ran. Slapping Fairy Wuyu felt good, and cursing her felt good, but being chased to death didn't feel good at all. Even though Su Luo's speed had skyrocketed to its peak, Fairy Wuyu was still getting closer and closer behind her, until there were only 100 meters left between them. Chapter 2245. Ominousness 6. Su Luo secretly stuck out her tongue. Stand still. If I did that, would I even be able to get out of here alive? Not only did Su Luo not stand still, she gained speed with a sudden burst of acceleration, and the gap between the two lengthened to 201 in an instant. Fairy Wuyu was angered halfway to death. With a sneer, she put force into the balls of her feet, and explosively charged forth with a whoosh. At the same time, she gathered a ball of light in her hand, and smashed it towards Su Luo's back. The gigantic ball of light crackled with lightning and flames, and streaked through the air magnificently. It was unexpected that Fairy Wuyu had the fire and thunder elements, and right now, the combination of these two would be incomparably destructive. Su Luo was afraid that if she got struck by that ball of light, she would end up completely charred. Just as the fire and lightning touched Su Luo's back, Fairy Wu Yu's lips curled into an evil sneer. Whoosh! With a soft sound, Su Luo's figure somehow disappeared before her eyes. The electric ball of light, without a target, crashed into the ground, gouging a 10-2 deep hole in the earth. Fairy Wu Yu was immediately dumbfounded. How could someone just disappear into thin air? Impossible. Fairy Wu Yu lifted her gaze forward, and sure enough, there was a flash of a black dot ahead of her. Su Luo, I didn't expect you to still have such a life-saving trump card. Very well, since you want to play, I'll play with you to your heart's content. A ferocious, twisted sneer was plastered on Fairy Wu Yu's face. Fairy Wu Yu whistled, and soon, 4 figures appeared before her. All of you find and bring Li Man to me at once. The corner of Fairy Wu Yu's mouth rose into a sneer. Since Su Luo was willing to offend Fairy Wu Yu for her, then that brat was in existence that could threaten Su Luo. So she could use that brat to threaten Su Luo. With a raise of Fairy Wu Yu's hand, the 4 of them flew off to hunt down Li Man, with no effort spared. Fairy Wu Yu set her eyes ahead, and fired a beam of light. This time she wanted Su Luo dead. Then she explosively charged forward. Su Luo knew that even if she had the spirit dance steps, she still couldn't outrun Fairy Wu Yu. Therefore, she just used teleportation, trying to take this opportunity to shake Fairy Wu Yu off. But because its spiritual strength consumption was rather extreme, it couldn't be used continuously, and couldn't be sustained for long. Fairy Wu Yu was like a venomous snake that had bitten onto Su Luo and wouldn't let go. Su Luo teleported, darting several kilometers away. Then when she had almost been caught up to by Fairy Wu Yu, she teleported again. Because teleportation left behind spatial fluctuations, no matter which direction Su Luo teleported in, Fairy Wu Yu could always accurately locate where she headed, which caused Su Luo great distress. Su Luo racked her brains as she ran. She couldn't run forever, and she was sure to lose in a head-on battle of spiritual strength against Fairy Wu Yu. So to win, she needed to outsmart her. But how could I outsmart her? During this high-speed escape, not only was Su Luo not panicked, she even felt a vague kind of excitement and thrill, and her eyes shone with the light of competitive spirit. A plan. I needed to make use of my own strengths, right? Suddenly, a glint appeared in Su Luo's eyes. At this moment, she finally thought of a place. On the way here, she had felt some unusual flame activity underground, and that mountain range resembled dragons ascending 9 heavens, so Su Luo chose to give it such a name. Chapter 2246, Ominousness 7. Since she had the fallen red lotus as a trump card, Su Luo knew that the more lava overflowing the place, the better it would be for her. Su Luo's number of teleportations wasn't enough, and so her speed began to slow down, but the strength of Fairy Wu Yu was much stronger than Su Luo's. Seeing the distance between herself and Su Luo getting closer and closer, a weird cold smile flashed under Fairy Wu Yu's eyes. Her speed kept soaring to its maximum, and rushed forwards, getting closer again. 100 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters. The smile under the eyes of Fairy Wu Yu grew hotter and more intense, the treachery at the corners of her mouth more and more obvious, and her hideous and distorted face wore a smug cold smile. Fairy Wu Yu drew out the sword in her hand. At this moment, she was preparing to pierce her long sword through Su Luo's body and split her in half. Su Luo, face death. Fairy Wu Yu leaped up high. Her body drew a fierce arc in midair, and the cold sword in her hand slashed downwards from high up. That thunderous momentum, if struck with it, would really kill you. Teleporting still needed an hour's time before it could be used again. At this moment, aside from being slaughtered, what else could Su Luo do? Fairy Wu Yu's face bore a cold smile of triumph. Just at this critical moment, it was unknown when a pair of wind and fire wheels appeared on Su Luo's legs, just as the sword in Fairy Wu Yu's hand slashed down. Beep! A clear sound rang out, and Su Luo's figure seemed to be abruptly pulled forward by a hand, leaving behind nothing but blue smoke. How could Fairy Wu Yu hold back her sword now? At this time, the force of her sword slashed down ruthlessly. Rumble! A loud sound. Su Luo and Fairy Wu Yu had been chasing on the mountains at that moment, So Fairy Wuyu's sword slashed directly down onto the mountain range. After the loud sound, this upright mountain peak was instantly split open by her sword. The cross-section was neat and smooth, more delicate than tofu. Fairy Wuyu had exhausted so much energy that her mouth felt numb, and she was extremely tired for a while. At this moment, she was so angry that she almost jumped to her feet. That stinky girl. Is she a rat or a cat? Does she have 9 lives? How come she can't even be killed? Fairy Wuyu was so angry that she waved her cold sword and quickly chased after her again. Because of the previous delay, it took half an hour before Fairy Wuyu caught up with Su Luo again. Meanwhile, Su Luo traveled easily and effortlessly with the wind and fire wheels flying her along the way. Ahead was already visible the faint silhouette of the dragon ascending 9 Heavens Mountain. Su Luo's eyes flashed with a bright light and shot towards there at a great speed. Seeing this, Fairy Wuyu laughed coldly. Stinky girl, let's see where you can run off this time. Fairy Wuyu was now very close to Su Luo, and smashed towards her back with a fierce move. Su Luo could not dodge. However, she still sneered. Good coming. Then Su Luo was blown by this strong wind from Fairy Wuyu, and her body ruthlessly smashed into the dragon ascending 9 Heavens Mountain. There was a loud rumbling sound, and then Su Luo's trace up ahead was lost once again. Fairy Wuyu was so angry at Su Luo that her lungs were about to explode. She saw a huge cave appear ahead, a cave that had obviously already existed by itself, but had been deliberately sealed up. But Su Luo had been hit so hard that she had actually smashed this door out. The cave was as dark as the night, but the sizzling heat that came to the surface caused Fairy Wuyu to realize that the situation inside seemed to be quite unusual. Chapter 2247. Ominousness, 8. Regardless of how unusual this was, since Su Luo was inside, Fairy Wuyu would definitely go in and chase after her. Without time to think anymore on this, Fairy Wuyu flew in. Because the entrance was just this one passage, Fairy Wuyu did not have to consider that she would lose track of where Su Luo was going. Ahead, Su Luo was secretly crying in her heart at this moment. How come there was only one way inside the passage? This was contrary to her plan. She was afraid that now it would be hard to use her strategies. Just as Su Luo frowned, her eyes suddenly lit up. That's right. How could I forget about my baby? She had a moving map, the little purple sable. The little purple sable had a natural advantage in getting through mazes. Su Luo once asked the little purple sable if it got out of mazes using its sense of smell. Who knew that the little purple sable would glance at Su Luo with contempt? Just by smell. That's not all. Then what? Su Luo asked with curiosity. The little purple sable cocked its head and answered seriously. I don't know. Anyway, when I walk into a maze or something like that, a clear map is created in my mind. So if I follow the map, I will naturally know how to get out. Su Luo. So, at this time Su Luo hurriedly carried out the little purple sable, who was leisurely napping in her space, and eagerly asked, Has a map been created in your mind? In fact, Su Luo did not hold any high expectations because this place was not like the mazes of legends. Who knew that the little purple sable would give her a big surprise? The little purple sable rubbed its drowsy eyes, then tilted its head and thought for a while, and finally nodded to Su Luo. A map was really created. Su Luo felt a wave of uncontrollable excitement. Follow this road, and after another 5-1, there will be a fork in the road that divides into 3 paths, and then another 5 kilometers past that, there are another 3 roads. The little purple sable said as he yawned. When it finished speaking, Su Luo hurriedly threw it into her space, and then flew forwards at a soaring speed. 5 kilometers, 5 kilometers, she hoped that she could persist on for 5 kilometers. Soon enough, when Su Luo reached 5 kilometers, she really saw 3 forks ahead, which was exactly what the little purple sable had said was in the map of this fire dragon cave in his mind. At this moment, there was no need to mention how happy Su Luo was. Now the real problem she faced was how to get rid of the chasing Fairy Wuyu. Su Luo's mouth curved up into a cold smile, and then a sunny doll appeared in her hand. This sunny doll had been drawn from a lottery, and it was the one that had ruthlessly tricked the boss of Midstream Mountain, causing him to lose his life. Now it could once again be used to trick Fairy Wuyu. The Sunny doll could be transformed into her exact appearance, and even any previous martial arts cultivation could be copied. However, this Sunny doll was only effective for a certain amount of time. After that, one would only see it turn into a cloth doll and fall to the ground. Su Luo didn't have any more time to think over this, and so she let the Sunny doll transform into her likeness on the spot while she hid. Fairy Wuyu soon caught up from behind her, and she saw a piece of goose yellow skirt flicker in the center of that fork in the road. Fairy Wuyu smiled coldly. Want to run? Not that easy. So Fairy Wuyu flew into the middle fork of the path and chased after the Sunny doll. And the Sunny doll, because it copied Su Luo's wind and fire wheels, was very fast, and after a while, Fairy Wuyu simply could not beat it. Chapter 2248. Nangong 1. Seeing Fairy Wuyu charge down the path in the center of the fork without a moment's hesitation, Su Luo slowly walked out from the small pathway on the left, smirking. You want to catch me? In your next life. Su Luo clapped her hands and prepared to leave at once. But Su Luo had only walked 2 steps before she suddenly had a very bad premonition. Her instincts for danger rang alarmingly. She immediately stopped in her tracks. A pitch-black figure swiftly appeared before her. This person was enveloped in darkness from head to toe, black clothes, a black cloak and black headgear. Only a pair of sinister, sly eyes were visible. Seeing those eyes, Su Luo's pupils instantly shrank. The 8th Elder. There was no doubt that this black-clad person was the 8th Elder. There was no possibility other than him. In her heart, Su Luo silently cursed at her misfortune. Just when she had sent Fairy Wuyu off, just when she was about to escape disaster, the 8th Elder came to chase her. Just then the black communication amulet in Su Luo's space rang. Nangong Luyan. But how could she possibly have the time to speak with him at this moment? She grabbed it and answered with a single sentence. The 8th Elder is trying to chase and kill me. So tell me later if you have something to say. She then hung up. Su Luo continuously retreated, while the 8th Elder steadily forced her back, step by step. Su Luo knew that if this continued on, she would undoubtedly die. What she had to do now was find an opportune moment to escape. But this would only work if the 8th Elder slipped up. Furthermore, in another 15 minutes, she would be able to teleport again. Thus Su Luo decided to stall. Who are you? Su Luo icily called out. The black-clothed man didn't speak, only steadily drawing closer to Su Luo with a strange glint in his eyes. Su Luo saw those eyes shine with thrill and excitement. What do you want? Su Luo calmly stood where she was, coldly gazing at him. Fallen. Red. Lotus. The black-clad man spoke 3 words. Surprise flashed across Su Luo's eyes. The fallen red lotus? He actually knew she had the fallen red lotus? How could this be? Seeing Su Luo's surprise, the triumphant smugness in the 8th Elder's eyes shone. Hand the fallen red lotus over. The 8th Elder arrogantly stood before Su Luo, his eyes gleaming like a blade's edge. Fallen red lotus? What's that? Never heard of it. Su Luo knew that denying it was the only right choice. Hee, the black-clad man sneered cunningly at her and reached out his palm. Since you won't offer it to me yourself, then I'll help myself to it. Su Luo leveled an icily arrogant gaze at him. 8th Elder, harming a student like this, do the other elders know of this? The black-clad man's eyes narrowed menacingly, and he coldly stared at Su Luo before suddenly bursting out laughing. Then he pulled the black cloth from his face. As expected, it was the 8th Elder. When did you recognize me? The 8th Elder's eyes held a hint of curiosity. Although you wrapped your whole body up still. It's impossible to hide those greedy eyes of yours, Su Luo said haughtily. But the 8th Elder wasn't upset, and he was instead still extremely excited. Looking at the 8th Elder right now, was there even a trace left of his strict, dignified appearance earlier? He completely seemed like a weirdo. If anyone saw, they would feel chills in their hearts. Continue. The 8th Elder looked at Su Luo smugly. Su Luo sneered. After entering the demon clan's fire territory, that dog that kept sneakily following me around was you, wasn't it? The one who attacked Fairy Wuyu in the small black house was also you, right? Because you thought the one who went in would be me. Chapter 2249. Nangong 2. The eighth elder began to chuckle. That's right, you guessed all of it correctly. The eighth elder surprisingly admitted to everything. And what else? Seeing the eighth elder's confident appearance, as if he had already won, Su Luo's heart sank further and further into a bottomless icy pit. Actually, from the moment the eighth elder pulled off the cloth covering his face, Su Luo's heart had already been pounding wildly. Under what circumstances would the eighth elder reveal his true colors and admit to everything? The answer was crystal clear. He had already decided to kill her, and also believed that Su Luo would never be able to escape from his grasp. Su Luo curled her lips in mockery. Since when did you start to suspect it? When Lan Yinyan died. Su Luo knew that, regardless of whether she admitted it, the eighth elder already firmly believed she'd done it. Furthermore, he would rather kill her mistakenly, rather than entirely miss out on the chance to do so. So even if she didn't admit it, it wasn't going to end well. The eighth elder slowly smiled. I once obtained a rare and valuable book, which had a detailed record of the fallen red lotus exotic fire, describing it and its features. At first, I would not have noticed you, but who told you to go and kill my disciple? A chill ran through Su Luo's heart. To think that it had actually been because of Lan Yinyan. The one time she showed off had now come back to cause her trouble. The fallen red lotus has already fused with my blood. You won't be able to obtain it. Su Luo smiled faintly. No worries. The book has details on that too. It's just a matter of peeling off your skin, pulling out your tendons, setting you on fire, and then refining you. But you need to have a breath of life left in you for it to work, so I'm here to ask for your opinion on this now. The eighth elder smiled in a way that seemed strange. Su Luo took a deep breath and sneered at the eighth elder. Ask me for my suggestions on whether or not I want to be skinned, burned, and hammered into shape by you? Right. The eighth elder nodded like it was a matter of course. Su Luo sneered. Don't tell me you're not scared that the city lord will take revenge. Upon mentioning the city lord, the eighth elder's hands paused for a slight moment, and he faintly knit his brows. You mean you didn't know that I was personally allowed in by the city lord? Su Luo raised the diamond token in her hand and smiled faintly. If the city lord finds out, he won't let you off. The diamond token flashed with a dazzling light. As the eighth elder, he'd naturally seen the diamond token before. The extremely powerful fourth elder had a token exactly like this one. The eighth elder knew in an instant that this diamond token was real. To think that the city lord had really given a diamond token to her. Once she reported him, the consequences would be too dreadful to think about. Looks like there is no option for you other than death. With a wicked smile, the eighth elder extended his hands and savagely gripped Su Luo's neck. The end of the teleportation's cooldown time was soon approaching. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. The eighth elder strangled Su Luo. The whites of her eyes were showing, and within moments her face swelled purple. He forcibly lifted Su Luo up, causing her feet to leave the ground. So at this moment she was powerless, and all she could do was to glare at him. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Su Luo felt like her neck was about to break. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. Su Luo fixed her gaze on the elder, and a taunting gleam flashed across her eyes. And then she smiled as her figure disappeared, leaving the elder's hands grasping nothing but the air. The eighth elder was stunned for a moment, before a cold light flashed in his eyes. Space element mage? Teleportation? Hee, at such a young age, she really is a good sapling, but what a pity. Who told you to fuse with the exotic fire? Chapter 2250. Nangong 3. Fairy Wuyu had already chosen to head along the middle path, so Su Luo would be asking for death if she were to run along there and let them ambush her. Therefore, Su Luo quickly flashed towards the corridor on the right. Step by step she teleported, with her residual flashes dazzling the sight of the surrounding people. But how powerful was the eighth elder? The The spatial fluctuations caused by Su Luo's teleportation were clear indications of the direction for his pursuit. Su Luo hurriedly took out the little purple sable as she ran along. Come on, what's the condition up ahead? Is it suitable for an ambush? Hurry up and show me the way. Little purple sable also knew that the situation was dire, so he didn't talk much nonsense and immediately helped Su Luo search. However, little purple sable only knew how the traffic was but was completely unfamiliar with good places to ambush. At this time, the fallen red lotus intervened. It told Su Luo, "This place is called the Fire Dragon Cavern, not because there is a fire dragon in here, but because there is a fire vein connected to the heart of the earth, which is incredibly powerful. Normally this fire vein in the heart of the earth is asleep, but it will stir in only one situation." "Which is?" Su Luo asked quickly. "With my fire, the magma of the earth fire can flow in the reverse direction." A hint of pride was present in the fallen red lotus voice. "Are you sure we can stand the flames of underground magma?" Su Luo asked cautiously. "I am the first flame from the beginning of the birth of heaven and earth. The flames between heaven and earth are all my children and grandchildren, so they have to submit to me." The fallen little lotus scoffed. "In that case, underground we go." Su Luo bit her lower lip, eyes brimming with determination. To go underground, you have to find a place with a weak crust, where the rock formations are hard and the damned old geezer can get in, but you can't. Little Red Lotus said with its little red mouth. Then, it was up to the little purple sable to find the place where the crust was weak. Little purple sable nodded solemnly, indicating his resolve to complete the task. Then, under the guidance of the little purple sable, Su Luo ran westward at an incredible speed. At this moment, Su Luo was stepping on the wind and fire wheels, spirit restoration pills constantly replenishing her spiritual energy. As she continued to teleport over and over again, she could improve her speed with her trump cards. At this moment, she had unleashed all of them. This time, however, the person behind her was not Fairy Wu Yu, but the powerful Eighth Elder. As a result, Su Luo had been knocking on the gates of hell for many a time already. The distance of 5 kilometers was usually a short distance, but today, it felt as far away as 5,000 kilometers to Su Luo. Fortunately, there was little purple sable leading the way, so Su Luo never once took a wrong turn. As she continued along, a narrow cave soon appeared in front of her, and Su Luo ducked into it without saying a word. The Eighth Elder was very close to Su Luo. He could have caught Su Luo by simply stretching out his hand, but Su Luo was able to break free every time by teleporting. This made the anger in the Eighth Elder's heart gradually rise. He didn't want to play this cat and mouse game anymore, so he suddenly sped up. Su Luo was already at her limits. Only when she reached the weak part of the earth's crust could her plan be set into motion. So Su Luo ran with all her might. 1,000 meters. 500 meters. 100 meters. Right here. Just as Su Luo was about to dive in, a strong hand unexpectedly reached out from behind, grabbed Su Luo's back collar, and pulled her over. Chapter 2251, Nangong 4. The Eighth Elder choked Su Luo until she fainted. When Su Luo regained consciousness, she found that she was still at the same place, but her whole body was tied up with strong ropes, looking just like a rice dumpling. The weak part of the crust was just 100 meters ahead, but it felt as though it was a world apart from her. Su Luo looked up, just in time to cross paths with the evil eyes of the Eighth Elder. The Eighth Elder sneered in a gloomy, condescending manner at Su Luo. "Still wanna run?" Su Luo was anxious, but she still kept an outwardly calm appearance. She faintly curled the corners of her lips. "Naturally, I can always run if I want to. I'm not a fool." This brat is still so courageous. A trace of regret surfaced within the eyes of the Eighth Elder. If not for you possessing the exotic fire, this old man would have truly liked to accept you as a disciple. Su Luo sneered. "Do you think that anyone would agree just because you want to accept them? Don't you want to be this old man's disciple?" The Eighth Elder was in disbelief. To be favored by the elders and accepted as a disciple was a dream for so many people. "If the Lord of the city wishes for it, maybe I will agree." Su Luo smiled casually. Bah! This time the eighth elder sneered. You really don't believe it? The city lord is my foster father. Su Luo replied with a serious tone. Ha ha ha! The eighth elder's laughter was brimming with arrogance and unbridled scorn. With your intelligence, how have you not discovered it yet, smelly lass? The closer you are to the city lord, the more reason for this old man to kill you. Su Luo bit her lips. The eighth elder glanced at Su Luo's back and snorted a couple times. Don't waste your energy, this rope is a treasure. Without the strength of a 7-star saint rank or higher, don't even think about breaking it. Although the eighth elder was jabbering on with Su Luo, he had been keeping a close watch on this cunning, stinky girl from the corner of his eye. Su Luo had tried to untie the ropes while listening to the eighth elder's speech, but as the eighth elder had expected, it wouldn't budge at all. Right at that moment, a dagger appeared in the eighth elder's hands. The dagger was smooth as a tranquil spring, while the chilling gleam radiating off its body made people shudder with fear. Since you're all tied up by the restraining immortal rope, you should save your strength and bear with it patiently, girl. The skinning and gutting will definitely not be finished within a single day. The eighth elder smiled casually, as if he was having a conversation over tea and a light meal. Even in such a situation, where it seemed like she had been backed into a corner, Su Luo still did not give up, as thoughts raced through her mind. The bright dagger was getting closer and closer to Su Luo's neck. Poochie! The sound of the dagger entering the flesh rang out clearly. Su Luo's slender neck was as white as jade, but it was now suddenly tainted with a deep crimson mark. Blood gushed out and sprayed all over the eighth elder's face. The eighth elder stretched out his tongue and licked it. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, followed by delight. Yes, not bad. It really is the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort. Your stinking body is full of treasures. With that greedy and vile look, it seemed like he couldn't wait to cook Su Luo and eat her up. As if being cut by a dagger wasn't enough, the eighth elder's 2 fingers stretched out into Su Luo's neck, in a clear and vicious attempt to pull out her veins. At the thought of being skinned alive, fear began to fill the depths of Su Luo's heart, but at that moment, Su Luo thought of a crucial piece of information. Although she was tied up by the restraining immortal rope, the stone pillar behind her was not. Chapter 2252, Nangong 5. Just then, transform into sheep technique. The little 9-tailed silver fox used all its spiritual strength with a strong killing move on the eighth elder transform into sheep technique. The eighth elder was caught off guard, and was even stunned for an instant. The eighth elder was too powerful, and the difference in strength between him and the 9-tailed silver fox was too great, so it could only gain Su Luo a small amount of time. At the same time, the stone pillar collapsed and crashed down mercilessly on top of the eighth elder. Boom! The eighth elder was knocked into a state of dizziness and confusion, getting a large, scarred bump to swell on his forehead. Taking advantage of this moment, Su Luo charged forward. Whoosh! Su Luo, with her hands still tied behind her by the restraining immortal rope, quickly fled underground into the weaker part of the continent's crust. When the eighth elder recovered, he almost stomped his feet in rage. Boiling with anger, he reached his hand out to grab the thin neck of the fleeing 9-tailed silver fox, and ruthlessly snapped it, ending its life. The poor little 9-tailed silver fox delicately collapsed just like that. For the sake of holding back the eighth elder, it didn't even have the chance to escape with Su Luo. The eighth elder kicked the little 9-tailed silver fox far away, then furiously chased after Su Luo. That cunning brat, she was really like a loach, slippery beyond belief. One careless move and she would escape. The eighth elder swore that after he caught her, he would definitely break her limbs and cripple her cultivation. The eighth elder chased after Su Luo at an extreme speed, with his afterimage flashing behind. Su Luo was bleeding as she ran, and there was an unusually thick scent of blood wherever she went. So even if the eighth elder wasn't looking at the path, he could still pick out which way Su Luo ran. Soon, he had already entered the part of the land's crust. Brat, where do you think you're running to? The eighth elder sped towards Su Luo, but he didn't notice the hint of a mocking smile on her face. There were 100 meters between Su Luo and the elder. 50 meters. 40 meters. If it had been before, Su Luo would have already teleported away long ago, but at this moment, she still hadn't done it yet. I finally caught you. When the 8th elder was only 10 meters from Su Luo, he reached out to grab Su Luo's neck. But before he could do that, something shocking happened. All the soil within 30 meters of Su Luo turned loose and crashed downward. Only a small ring of soil within 5 meters of Su Luo was left untouched. It was as if the large ring was enclosing the small ring. The soil in the small ring was unchanged, but everything else in the large ring had caved in below. And where the 8th elder was standing just so happened to be that caved-in area. As a result, the 8th elder lost his footing and plummeted down. But being the 8th elder, the instant there was danger, he lifted himself up in a smooth ascending motion. If Su Luo let the 8th elder return to the surface, then her pitfall trap would have failed after coming this far. Fallen Red Lotus. Since the 8th elder liked the exotic fire so much, then he should die by it. The fallen Red Lotus came out, and all the fire laying below, dormant for countless years, was suddenly activated. In that instant, the magma hidden underground surged forth in blazes, and with a powerful rumble, like a tidal wave of snow, wildly gushed up and out. Chapter 2253. Nangong 6. The poor 8th elder was thoroughly coated with magma, and all the hair on his head, his brows, and everywhere on his body was cleanly burned off. And when gravity pulled the magma back down, it took the 8th elder down with it. The 8th elder was about to go mad with anger. He had never thought that he, the dignified 8th elder, an existence above the masses, would one day be messed with to such an extent by a brat who hadn't even reached the top 50 rankings on the dragon list. The 8th elder released his spiritual strength in an attempt to resist falling. He swiftly flew back up, after having fallen 200 meters. Su Luo tilted her head and looked below, and the situation wasn't good. The 8th elder was coming back up. Su Luo then commanded the fallen Red Lotus to reconnect with the magma, and the magma swept forth once more. The 8th elder, who had been only 10 meters from reaching the ground, was once again brought down. To be subjected to this repeatedly, the 8th elder was furious almost to the point of spitting blood. But Su Luo wasn't celebrating her victory, and instead, had a vague premonition of bad things to come, because she was still tied up like a sticky rice dumpling, and she felt that this restraining immortal rope would bring her great trouble in the future. Sure enough, after the 8th elder experienced that maddening, explosive anger, he slowly came back to his senses. He knew he couldn't go on like this anymore. Although the gushing magma couldn't kill him for the time being, if he kept getting scorched again and again, it would be enough for him to burn to death. Like how dripping water could gradually erode a stone. The 8th elder knew that the key problem was Su Luo herself. If he could just take her down, then he could reach the surface. So, how would I go about doing that? With a strange sneer, the 8th elder's mouth moved in silence, as if he were chanting curses. At this moment, Su Luo had a bad feeling. The dumpling-like restraining immortal rope that had tightly tied her came loose. And then that loose end plummeted straight down, making Su Luo spin. Then Su Luo really understood. The restraining immortal rope hadn't completely detached from Su Luo. One end was still firmly tied to her waist, and the other end, that had fallen down, was now grasped in the 8th elder's hand. Su Luo was dumbfounded. He could still pull off such a thing? With a wicked look in his eyes, the 8th elder only needed to pull gently, and the pitiful Su Luo kept being pulled back. Currently, Su Luo wasn't even 50 meters from the hole. Su Luo resisted, but to no avail. She was about to be pulled into the hole. At that moment, the variant red acacia tree flew out of Su Luo's space. It firmly planted itself in the soil, its golden vines wrapping around Su Luo, protecting her. Seeing Su Luo stop in place, the 8th elder pulled with even more strength. The little purple sable also held on to Su Luo. Even if it was only a little more strength, they still needed that extra little bit of effort. But even with the little purple sable, Su Luo was being pulled so strongly that the deeply rooted variant red acacia tree was making cracking sounds, seeming as if it was about to be uprooted. With a sharp cry, Su Luo fell into the collapsed ground. that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.